that he comes from a family of bureaucrats and that his goal had been to become a secretary. External Affairs Minister S.Jaishankar, in that podcast interview with Smita Prakash of ANI, recalled the time his father, Dr. K. Subramaniam, was removed as secretary. He actually said that he was the first secretary to be removed when the Janata Party government exited and Indira Gandhi came in. Now, defense production by former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi soon after she came back to power in 1980. Now, he was Secretary Defense Production at that time, and that he was also superseded during the Rajiv Gandhi period with someone junior to him becoming the Cabinet Secretary. Now, before we tell you more about Dr. K. Subramaniam, first let's listen into what his son, Dr. Jaishankar, had to say.
In 1980, he was Secretary Defense Production. In 1980, when Indira Gandhi was re-elected, he was the first secretary that she removed. And, he was the most knowledgeable person, everybody would say, on defense. He was also a very upright person. Maybe that caused a problem, I don't know. But the fact was, as a person, he saw his own bureaucratic career in bureaucracy actually kind of stall. And after that, he never became a secretary again. He was superseded during the Rajiv Gandhi period for his, somebody junior to him became cabinet secretary. So it was something he felt. We rarely spoke about it, but it was obviously something which must have been inside him. So he was very, very proud when my elder brother became secretary. In my case, he passed away in 2011. At that time, I had got what you would call grade 1, which is like a secretary rank ambassador. I didn't become secretary. I became after he passed away. But for us, at that time, the goal, you could say, was, okay, we must become secretary.
Now, Dr. Jaishankar's statement has not gone down well with the opposition. Now, taking a jibe at the foreign minister, Trinamool Congress's Rajya Sabha MP Jawahar Sarkar invoked K. Subramaniam's remark on the Gujarat riots. The Trinamool Congress MP said S.Jaishankar's father, K. Subramaniam, said Dharma was killed in Gujarat 2002 riots. Those who fail to protect innocent citizens are guilty of adharma. Rama would have used his bow against the Asura rulers of Gujarat. TMC MP Jawahar Sarkar, referring to EM Jaishankar, said, shame on son serving Asura. Congress spokesperson Supriya Srinath also lashed out at Subramaniam Jaishankar for his remarks and said, you may attack anyone, but remember your father's words and that Jaishankar's father had wisdom and experience. So who was Dr. K. Subramaniam? Born in January 1929 in Tamil Nadu's Tiruchirappalli, K. Subramaniam went to Madras Presidency College and subsequently entered the Indian Administrative Service. Subramaniam was described as the doyen of India's strategic affairs by none other than former Vice President of India, Hamid Ansari. Considered to be India's most reputed strategic thinkers, Dr. K. Subramaniam is also one of the key architects of India's security policy doctrine. In 1999, Dr. K. Subramaniam was appointed chairman of the Kargil Review Committee, which was set up by the government in the aftermath of the war with Pakistan. The committee recommended changes in the structure of Indian intelligence services and creation of a chief of defense staff, and this recommendation was adopted in December 2019 by the Modi government. In 1998, under the Vajpayee government, Dr. K. Subramaniam was appointed convener of the first National Security Council Advisory Board, which drafted the country's draft nuclear doctrine. K. Subramaniam had also strongly criticized the Vajpayee government's decision of merging the posts of Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister and National Security Advisor (NSA). In 2004, Manmohan Singh's government bifurcated the two posts. So Indira's sacked father is Dr. Jaishankar's remark, and this has sparked big debate. Let's go across to two gentlemen who were not only present at that time, but who are also aware of K. Subramaniam and have also closely watched Subramaniam Jaishankar. Ambassador G. Parthasarathy, who he himself has told me is about 13 years junior to K. Subramaniam ji, and also Lieutenant General D.B. Shekhardkar, defense expert, and who was very, very closely involved with Bharat strategy doctrine. So, with your kind permission, General Shekhardkar, I'll start with Ambassador Parthasarathy. Ambassador Parthasarathy, a lot of criticism coming in Dr. Jaishankar's way. So everybody is quoting K. Subramaniam in one particular dynamic. Dr. Jaishankar mentioned another dynamic. Where do you stand?
Let me tell you where I stand on Subramaniam and the Jaishankar family. We have known each other since the 1940s. And K. Subramaniam worked with my father when my father was Chief Secretary in Tamil Nadu. He was a brilliant defense strategist, have no doubt. He was the first person who advocated very publicly the need for India to go nuclear. He earned the wrath of the Americans, I recall, at that period of time, and though later people accuse him of being pro-American. He earned the wrath of the Americans. The Americans cut off our nuclear fuel supplies, but Subramaniam advocated standing firm. Yes, to me it was inexplicable why Mrs. Gandhi, did not follow through with him. There were a lot of people with a lot of jealousies, and that's the way the bureaucracy works. But it was, to my mind, a very unfortunate decision, because in terms of defense strategy, in historical terms and in real terms, in technical terms, Subramaniam was a great believer in developing our own defense industry. As I said, he stood up for our nuclear position. And in fact, to tell you the truth, I was in Washington at that time. Subramaniam was then chairman of the Joint Intelligence Committee, and his position was at variance with that of the Morarji Desai government, who wanted it settled in negotiations with the Americans. He was very, very clear. There should be no surrender on this basic right. And later on, he became Secretary Defense Production. Beyond that, it's inexplicable to me. Though I worked as Rajiv Gandhi's spokesman, as to why Subramaniam didn't make it, but he was not disappointed. He stuck to his task. His sole task, his aim in life, was seeing India becoming self-reliant and going nuclear. It was an ideal I tried to set myself out, but I followed him. Today, we are having a situation where we are now returning to forming a self-reliance in defense. Thereafter, I must say one thing, that he did very well when Mr. Vajpayee appointed him for the Kargil Review Committee. I testified before him as High Commissioner as to what went wrong in our detecting that intrusion so late. And it was a very business-like report. There was no question of friendship interviewing me. I was grilled as the High Commissioner. And that was the way the relationship was. And it was very unfortunate. I could never understand why a man of his caliber, and I don't know the reasons.
So there are layers within layers, but
let me tell you one thing. One thing was, at that stage, he offended the Americans with his very strong position on nuclear weapons and weaponization. I don't know if that was the reason, who did it, why, but not. But that was the reality of the time.
But amidst all of this, one thing stands.
He was a role model. I stand by him.
So he was incorruptible. He was very, very convinced that Bharat needed its own defense infrastructure. It needed to be Atmanirbhar in defense. And it needed to follow a nuclear policy doctrine, because he knew and he had foreseen Pakistan and China converging and forming a nuclear axis in this region. General Shekarkar, where do you stand? So ideologically, he may be aligned or not aligned, but from a thought process as far as where India should be, was there clarity? And do you see that clarity translate even into the sun? How would you see the political jibes that have come against him?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Narasimhan.
Namaste, sir. Jai Hind.
I know Mr. Parsarthi for a long time. We have worked also together, and what he said is absolutely right. What he said is absolutely right. The reason being, what we have gone through in last so many years, because of such stupid decisions taken by some people, the entire nation has suffered. The entire nation has suffered. I'm sorry, I'm sounding a little blunt, but there is no harm in speaking the truth. There's a saying in Urdu, वक्त ऐसा भी देखा है, तारीख की घड़ियों में लम्हों ने खता की, सदियों ने सजा पाई. When you commit a mistake deliberately, the entire nation, entire generation keeps on suffering from time to time. And that is what is happening. And what the Honorable Minister has said, he's absolutely right. He mentioned about the Kargil Review Committee. I was handling Arunachal Pradesh against the China as a Lieutenant General. At that time, the Kargil war was going on. And we know exactly what has gone wrong and who went wrong. But the point is, that is not the issue of our discussion in this debate. Or this. We have to see when people take some decisions, maybe against some people, they always tend to commit a mistake which is not in the national interest. And that is what has happened. And that is what a person of the caliber of Mr. Subramaniam, he was my guru. I was a student. In fact, when I was doing the National Defence College course, I met him twice, and he said, why don't you become part of this IDSA, which is known as Parikar IDSA. That was his caliber. And so therefore, seeing him from very close possible distance, understanding his philosophy, his vision, his forthrightness, I don't think when people say he was removed, it was the right decision. Supersession is not the thing. When you find somebody who is much superior to you, you try and use your political power. You try and use your political power to do away with those people. And that is why I said, lamho ne khata ki, sadiyon ne saza pai. And that is why we are suffering. We are not trying to come out. We are trying to come out. We have come a long distance. We will continue to be doing well. Today, as Mr. Parsarthi said, India is recognized throughout the world.
Yes.
India is taken for seriously. There are people in Russia, there are people in Ukraine, there are people all over the world who are seeking the intervention of a Prime Minister and Prime Minister of India. Prime Minister of India. So India's name is going throughout the world. And if we had the honor of having Mr. Subramaniam, things would have been totally different by now. We wouldn't have to sign these treaty with China. We wouldn't have to sign this peace and tranquility agreement. Again, today I think somebody has talked that there's a suggestion from China to have a peace and tranquility. We have signed 5 agreement and they have violated all the things. This is what Mr. Subramaniam used to say. Don't ever trust. Don't ever trust Chinese. They will betray you. And along with them, he also said, never trust Pakistan.
So let's look at it not from the political prism, but from the national prism and the national security doctrine prism. And was there an error of the moment which perhaps we are paying the price for over decades? Lamho ne khata ki sadiyon ne saza pai, as very poetically General Shekatkar put it. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time. I have to keep this short because I have paucity of time. I have to move on for the